Thanks for calling. I was beginning to wonder what a girl had to do to get arrested.
Wearing that dress is a step in the right direction.
Are you gonna make a move, or do I have to do everything?
I'm on duty.
What's your day off?
Sunday.
It's a big world. Must be Sunday somewhere.
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Movie Oblivion, the podcast about feature films based on comic books and comic strips that people have stopped talking about. And welcome also to the second week of what I've decided to call cinematographical representations inspired by the medium of excellent comics, or crime mech.
Yes,
for short. The crime mech is a 3-week exploration of films that have crime as the theme, but also, in some way, try to bring the style of comics into the cinematic medium. I'm your host, Jordan, and with me, as always, is the man, the myth, the legend, Kumar.
Okay, pause the podcast. So, so we're talking about Dick Tracy this week.
Yes, we are talking about Dick Tracy. I didn't mention that this week.
The 1990 version, which is important to mention.
Very good, because there's some others, isn't there? So first week of Crime Mech was Diabolic.
Yeah.
And second week, we're doing Dick Tracy.
Yeah. So there's a major twist at the end of this movie, which we're going to talk about.
Okay.
So, do we think people need to pause it to... I personally think this is a nonsensical twist.
Yep.
That it doesn't matter if I tell you, because...
It's dumb.
I think you're going to be...
If you bought a certain action figure before you saw the film as well, notoriously...
I didn't know that.
Apparently this action figure was from Canada, and...
Okay.
I don't know how that works. And yeah, if you bought this action figure, and if you took off the mask underneath was the reveal. But I'm going to say no, don't bother. Don't bother pausing the podcast.
Okay.
You've probably already seen this film. Well, maybe not, actually.
No, actually. I actually was thinking about it. We can bounce around a bit, but I thought, have I seen this or not? Because I remember being in the room with my older brother and my dad seeing Pacino and going, "That's Al Pacino?" And my brother was like, "Yeah," but we might have just been watching like the review of it on Siskel and Ebert, is my guess. Because watching it yesterday, I was like, I'm 100% sure I haven't seen this. I didn't
really? Okay.
Yeah.
So back to pause the podcast.
Yes.
I'm going to say no. The twist is nonsensical, as you said. There's not much of a story, frankly.
No.
So go ahead and listen to this podcast about this film.
Yeah.
But shall we talk about the comic first?
Yes. Okay. So, Dick Tracy by Chester Gould started in 1931. You probably know what it is. It's it's just detective. And as the strip went on, it became, it had these kooky villains started showing up. Usually with very weirdo faces.
Yeah.
And they would be named, they would have names like Prune Face, and he would have like a prune face.
Yes.
Or Flat Top, and he would have like a
his
flat...
head was flat, yeah.
And I even think Dick Tracy is like detective who traces people, maybe. So even that was maybe almost one of these names. In the issues we read this week, there's like the girl's name is Sleet.
Yeah, her name is Sleet, yeah. Sam Ketchum is introduced.
Sam Ketchum, just like Ash Ketchum from Pokemon.
That is exactly what it's like. Amazing.
But I actually think this was like a key inspiration for Batman. And that rogues gallery with all the weird faces and stuff. I
think that's right.
Yeah. So
the original rogues gallery, the colourful villains with unique physiognomy or features or MO, may well have got its start in Dick Tracy and not in Batman. Dick Tracy is another one of those comics that doesn't seem to have crossed the Pacific. By I mean here to Australia. My only exposure to Dick Tracy is the film.
Right.
I sort of know about it.
Yeah.
Enough of it has kind of percolated through American
Well,
popular culture.
this is why I think we don't need to introduce Dick Tracy too much. You know, he's got the
Sure.
weird villains, but really, he's a dude with a crooked nose. You know, mostly in profile. Nobody cares about
Sort of
front-on
kind of
Dick
like
Tracy.
an aquiline nose,
Yes.
sort of like an eagle's bill.
Yes, exactly. And so he's got a weird face, much like the villains, which is part of the problem with the movie when we'll get to it.
Well, problem? Well, problem?
I don't know. It's, well, okay, anyway. So he's got this very distinctive crooked nose, and
A square
he's
jaw.
got a square jaw. He wears a yellow hat, yellow jacket in the Sundays. He kind of well, okay. This is another interesting question: is what do we say about Dick Tracy's personality? What do we get from him? So for this episode, we read a few issues from the reprints, which I just found online.
Yeah.
So there's like a Dell series. The original Dell series reprints were from the 30s, and then I think they ran out. Like, I think they caught up, and then they started producing original comics, and then I think they went over to Harvey, I want to say. Yes, Harvey Comics, and then Harvey started doing reprints again, and that was more from, like, the 40s period, which is more the Dick Tracy, which is probably the most important, like, aspects are, like, the yellow outfit and the signal watch, the
Right.
two-way radio watch.
Yes, the two-way wrist radio.
Yes.
Say that fast 3 times.
Yeah.
You don't actually have to do that. But I noticed, that's something I noticed reading it, that his gadgets are really important.
Really important, and also really super science fictional to the extent that every time they use it, there's a little caption
Yes.
that says what it is.
There's always a little
in
label
case you're
pointing
coming
at
into
yeah.
it, going, why is he talking to his watch? Which people might have still been doing in 1941 or 45 or whenever this was. If you still got to say this is what he's doing.
No, it just does it every time. This was 1952, I think, the one we were reading.
Okay.
Because there was a great panel that I took a picture of. But I'll come back to that. But yes, I noticed that it's not just his wristwatch. There are there's always gadgets around. Like, for example, they've got a prison where all the prisoners are under closed circuit
Yes.
television.
Yeah.
Which obviously now you wouldn't raise an eyebrow at it. But in 1952, this was a big deal, and it was called the Telly Guard.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's a plot point, that they can see the prisoners through it.
Yes, and I will point out that in the 60s, he ended up going to the moon, and
Right,
they
I did
added
read
this
about
character
that.
called Moon Maid, and this went on for a long time. And
Apparently it went on, Kumar, until the Apollo rover landed on the moon, and
Right.
it was shown to be lifeless, and then they dropped it from
Right, okay, that makes sense.
Gould dropped
But
it.
I will say also, when Gould quit, the writer that came in, this is very important, was Max Allan Collins. And Max Allan Collins brought back he's a crime novelist, sometimes write comics, which is important, I'll get to this. But he went back to basics, I think. Like, he really got rid of the moon stuff.
Right.
And he really made it a crime mystery thing again,
Right.
with police procedural kind of stuff
And
in
fewer flying cars and going to the moon.
Max Allan Collins, in his comics work, wrote Road to Perdition, which became the Tom Hanks movie.
Okay.
So that's on our list to be
very
covered
good.
at some stage
Very
as well.
good.
So there's a connection there. So in the 30s one, I read a few issues of these ones from the 1930s. He ends up going to this small town as a favor to a friend of his father, who the town has gone totally corrupt, and they need Dick Tracy to come in for 6 months and clean it up.
Yeah.
And the first thing he does is he deals with these street crimes, speeding. Speeders. He'll pull these guys over, and they're usually rich guys. There's a guy that's an alderman or something, and they're usually rich dudes that just have impunity in town. They just drive around as they want. He pulls them out and he drags them out of their cars. He literally does this all the time. But another thing he does is he wants to build a playground in the city. He wants to get kids off the street to prevent future crimes. This is his major thing. And all the councilmen, all their chauffeurs and kids have been pulled over by him, so they oppose the deal, but he's strongly for it.
Yeah.
So, from the 30s, my feeling is, it's not like he's rough with the
Crooks,
criminals,
but he's got a heart of gold.
but they're not. It's never like he's he's like, you're breaking. Nobody ever says you're breaking the rules, Tracy. We can't treat criminals like this. It's just,
Good. Yes,
it's fine. It's whatever he's doing is fine. Nobody's like, gee, you really shouldn't do that, or this isn't how we do police work, or anything like that. But he has a really empathetic side. He has a wise side that's like, let's nip this in the bud and keep.
Well, yeah, he's in favour of kind of progressive social policy, building a playground so the kids stay off the streets.
Yeah,
yeah. I didn't do a lot of research on the comic side of thing compared to the film, but we'll get to that. But one of the things I did read was that Chester Gould was kind of inspired by the circumstances of the Depression.
Okay.
Specifically kind of like the proliferation of crime associated with poverty, and especially the influence of organised crime.
Right.
Is very anti-organised crime, and a lot of Dick Tracy villains, or very early on, I think before the concept of the Rogues Gallery sort of became established, he was very much fighting organised crime.
Well, something I noticed in these 30s issues was Sam Ketchum comes in, and my 2023 brain immediately goes, so he's introduced, he becomes a major Dick Tracy, a permanent Dick Tracy character.
Yes.
Sam Ketchum as a partner for Tracy. But he comes in, and my 2023 brain is going, oh, is this guy crooked? Is there some secret side to this guy? And there kind of is. Was he in the 30s one? Anyway,
This is the 1952 one.
Yes, so when he deals with Sleet, he's got pictures of her dealing with some counselor or something, like taking money from her or giving money or something, and he holds this over her head all the time. If you don't do what I tell you, and this is not an issue in the strip, it's not considered like corrupt for him to be doing this or immoral or in any way. But what I noticed was, so he turns out to be fine. There's nothing wrong with him.
There's
but
nothing wrong
the criminals,
except that he has evidence of a crime that he withholds.
The criminals are constantly beating each other up. They're constant infighting among themselves. All that kind of stuff. There's backstabbing. All that kind of stuff is happening. So it's pretty clear good guys and bad guys.
Yes, and it's a case of the end justifying the means.
Yeah.
So because the real bad guys end up in jail,
yes,
it doesn't matter that Dick Tracy doesn't follow police procedure, that he beats the living hell out of criminals.
Yeah.
That Sam Ketchum is blackmailing, essentially, a criminal to do what he wants. And in fact, as he got older and the 1960s kind of civil rights movement advanced, like Al Cap, Chester Gould became kind of more reactionary.
Oh, right, okay.
And some of the and some of the Dick Tracy comics began to be about how the cops were being hamstrung by all of these civil rights.
Swear to
rules.
God, there's this comic called Dick Tracy versus the Punks. I've seen the cover of it. I have to find it and post it in the Facebook group.
It sounds like punks. That's a bit late.
It's a bit late. It's later than that, but I can totally see him beating up hippies and stuff, or this coming around.
I read a quote where he had to let some jewel thieves go because the nagging prosecutor says you can't prove that those jewels were stolen, and he has to let the jewel thieves go, and then he mutters. It feels like the law is handcuffing the cops more than it is the criminals these days.
Right.
These days being like 1965.
Right.
Something
exactly.
like that. But to return to the gadgets.
Yeah.
I mentioned the Teleguard. Now I found the two panels that I really loved from reading it. So it's Sam Ketchum says, "Gosh, when I think of the progress that's been made since I entered police work 25 years ago, I was a young guy then. I thought a billy club, a star, and a six-shooter was as scientific as you could get." And then Dick Tracy replies, "Yes, Sam, this is 1952.
Yeah. Yes, I love that. I actually remember that line, him talking about the six-shooter being the most advanced technology. It really stuck in my
But it's
mind.
1952 now, and we have space watches and
Yes.
closed-circuit television.
And the other thing was, so when we get to the 50s series, so in the 30 series, there's a thing where Dick Tracy suspects that these criminals are working out of an underground hideout under a gas station. So, but he's not sure. So what he does is he hires this kid to walk around on stilts over top of it. And then he hears the tapping and he's like, aha, it's hollow down there. And that's how he figured it out. So there's actually some kind of police work going on.
Right.
When we get to the 50s, I think we're in full steam Dick Tracy mode, where it's just a lot of crazy shit that happens. And there's a little bit less detective work as far as I can tell. So this is a totally crazy storyline. So from the issues we read, which are like 57 through 59 of the Harvey series, so this Tracy's trying to capture this crook who's kidnapped some kids or one kid. The parent of the kid is named B.O. Plenty, which I really loved. He's just like hick. But anyway, so the crooks were getting signals, Morse code signals, flashed to them in prison by this woman this old lady with a mirror. Okay, so that leads into the next storyline, which is the Ice Cold Killer storyline, in which this woman ends up going to court, but they figure she's just getting paid by various criminals, apparently, to flash signals, Morse code signals.
With polished records.
So her daughter, Sleet, shows up in town to meet her mother.
The richest mole in America.
Yeah, that's right. And at the same time, Sam has showed up in town to join the local police force. This is a kind of Chicago-like city that Dick Tracy works in that's not really defined. It's like invented like Gotham or Metropolis.
Or the city that Diabolik lives in, whatever it was called.
Yes, that's right. So we end up in this crazy storyline where just one thing happens to another. And I guess reading it, in a single comic book in half an hour is a lot different than reading 3 or 4 panels a day.
Right.
But basically, so what happens? So she...
they bludgeon Sam Ketchum.
Well, this is after. So first he's holding stuff over her head. And she goes to this club and she hires 2 hitmen to murder him, and she pays them $500.
Yes.
And the cops, Dick Tracy has her house staked out with a video camera. So when these hitmen come out...
The teleguard.
Yes, they know, so they're able to identify that those 2 guys work for this other guy. So they attack. There's an amazing panel where Tracy actually shoots... a gun. They're holding guns, so he shoots, and we get a close-up of the bullet going through this guy's wrist. So he drops the gun. There's no gore, there's no blood, but I was just like amazed that we got this close-up of the bullet going through. So then Sam figures out that it's her because he pulls the $500 off this guy, and he smells the perfume, so he knows it's her, and he confronts her about it. Then her mom is hiding behind the door, and she smashes Sam over the head. They are like, okay, we can't kill him here because we don't have a dead body, so we're going to take him. They drag him out of the apartment, pretend he's drunk, push him into. They take him away in a cab. Then they push him into a truck that's removing snow.
Yes.
And the snow. Then they remove the snow and dump the snow into the river. Everyone out, Dick Tracy and the police are like, "Well, where's Sam? What happened to Sam? Where'd he go?" Then they find out he escaped from that, and then somehow there's a bit of a cheat because they're like, "How do we know?" They find his scarf, which is trapped in the door of his muffler, which is trapped in the door of the cab.
Oh, yeah.
But we had a panel earlier where he was still wearing it. Anyway,
okay, so...
Anyway, there's a little bit...
You only read 3 panels a day.
Exactly. You wouldn't remember something that happened 3 weeks ago or whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't remember how they caught them, but they arrest the 2 women. They put them in cells next to each other.
Yes.
Sleet's mother grabs her hair through the bars and slams her head against the wall three times, it looks like in the drawing, until she's knocked out.
It's quite violent.
It is pretty shocking. So they take Sleet to the hospital, but while she
wheels herself out.
She wakes up and she escapes.
Well, she hides in an elevator. And while the orderly or whatever that's escorting her moves away for a moment, and she quickly sends the elevator up a few floors. Cops get called. They arrive. It's like, we know Sleet's in the building somewhere. This happens a lot. Yeah, it's always, they're in the building somewhere.
Yeah.
We got to get in there and find them.
Yeah.
And how are they going to get out of the building that we've got surrounded? And it's a great way to end a cliffhanger, I suppose. And so Sleet, we don't see her escape, but we get one panel of a figure in a wheelchair, I think with perhaps a sheet or a shawl
that's right.
over them. And it's like, that's interesting. Why are we seeing this wheelchair? So she wheeled herself out in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
And no one was looking for a woman in a wheelchair.
And then she gets the job at the diner washing dishes. Okay, so she gets a job immediately. The next second, she goes to hide. She gets a job washing dishes.
Yeah.
But so she cuts off the prison label off of her clothing and puts it in the garbage. This guy who she's working with is suspicious of her, and he finds a prison tag.
Well, he's attracted to her, which also might explain why she keeps getting her way a lot, because she's quite beautiful.
So this guy offers to pay her, like, she wants an advance on her pay, but the other chef or whatever is like, look, I'll lend you $20 or whatever. But he finds a thing in the trash, and he starts to get a hunch about who she is, and he starts to extort her. Yep. And he figures out that she's some rich mole, and he's like, look, you're going to pay me or it's going to come out. And she's like, well, okay. And he sees a thing in the newspaper about her. He puts it together.
Yes.
He's like,
so first he's just hitting on her and giving her money in hope of future favours. But yes, he spots the newspaper, and then he realises that she's Sleet. She has millions allegedly in a safe deposit box.
Yeah.
And so he decides, I'm not going to. He actually goes to her and says, "Look, I'm not going to dob you in.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell the cops. But once the heat's blown over." There's a mixed metaphor there. Yeah. I just say, toss me 10 grand or whatever out of your deposit box. But Sleet, he doesn't know that Sleet is the ice cold killer, and she invites him on a walk on a gangway above a train station, and she pushes him off.
Yeah,
and kills him.
Straight up kills him. Cops luckily find the letter. He was carrying an insurance letter to give to the cops, which said exactly who she was, and he had the proof, the labels,
the women's prison label on it. Yes.
So she runs off, and she's trying to catch a bus at 6 a.m, and this lady comes up, who I thought was a prostitute, and maybe sort of is, and is like, "You're not going to catch a bus here. Why don't you come with me to this club I work at?" And she becomes a dancer.
Yep.
In this kind of mirror show where the girls are downstairs and it's reflected on mirrors upstairs.
Is that what was going on?
Yeah. Because Sam,
of course,
somehow they find out she's working there. So Sam goes.
I think Sam just goes there by accident and sees
he goes there and he sees her outline, her silhouette in the mirror show. And he's
they're dancing downstairs, and
he just needs a drink. And he's like, "Okay, I'm going to go downstairs," but he gets beat up by the doorman.
Yeah,
and he can't
tries to go down. You're not allowed down. You're not allowed to touch the ladies. The ladies are dancing down there. You're only allowed to look at them through this periscope device.
Right. Yes. So meanwhile, by pure coincidence, a huge plate glass window falls on her in the street while she's walking down the street. She's all cut up, and this poor lady takes her in. That they were fixing her window. She's like, "I'm responsible, so I'll take her in." Sam and Dick Tracy go to the strip mirror show, and they're like, "She's not gone here." Now. So they're canvassing, trying to find out where she went. This woman that has taken her in has all these taxidermy animals in her place, like dozens of them everywhere. It's this weird thing. And this
is my other favorite bit of the comic, incidentally.
Oh yeah, this is so great. So somehow, I think from talking to the window painters.
Yes. Yeah, the window.
Dick Tracy finds out that she's here in this building.
I forget, there was a connection. They're drinking, the window painters.
Oh, the window, they're in the bar drinking. Yeah. Maybe at the Mirror Show bar. Maybe when they were in there, No, one of them picked up a bottle of perfume. She dropped.
That's it.
She dropped her perfume on the street.
Yeah.
Sleet dropped her perfume on the street. One of the window painters picked it up. Was like, "I'm going to take this home. I'll give it to my wife or something."
Yeah, that's it.
So he's in the Mirror Show place, and then I think Dick Tracy and Sam are investigating the place. The guy opens the bottle, he smells the perfume, and he's like, "Where'd you get that?" And the guys are like, "Hey, oh, by the way, there was a whole plot line we missed where when Sam went into the river." Because he got found by these hobos.
Yeah.
Who took him in, and then they looked at his ID and found he was a cop, and they ran out. There's all this stuff going on there. Anyway, so they find out that she's in this apartment building through the window painters. They go in. She flees to the roof. The old lady's taking care of her. Is like, "Don't go up there." But she doesn't listen to that. She runs up there. There's more taxidermy animals up there, but in a great silent panel, one of them, this giant gorilla, reaches out.
Yeah.
So this woman's got a pet gorilla up there, but it's chained, but it starts beating the life out of her, like really beating her up. We don't see it, but we know it's happening because Dick Tracy charges in, which he always does near the end of the strip. Near the end of the storyline, he charges in. She's like, "She's up there with my pet gorilla."
They have to pull the chain.
Yeah, so they have to pull the chain from the outside. So they get this like big wrench. They wrench it out of the wall. They pull it back out of the way so that she's free. She runs out. She jumps off the roof and ends up landing in a water tower. Her legs go through the wood and she's stuck. And that's how they catch her.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the Sleet storyline.
Yeah, I can imagine. a 10-year-old in 1952 being filled with boyish glee at all of, much as you are filled with boyish glee.
And trying to remember what happened 6 weeks ago or whatever, and just forgetting all that stuff as we
did. And then the perfume reappears, and it's like, oh, the perfume!
Yeah,
it's the same perfume that was on the money! Of course Sam Catchan's going to notice it.
Yeah.
Of course he is. It doesn't matter that, lots of people wear perfume. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Because he was thinking about her, and it's enough of a clue for them to go, it's good, yeah.
So she still had the same perfume all through her prison sentence while she was wearing the prison clothes. She still had, while she was working at the diner, in her prison clothes with the label cut off.
Yep. Yep. That's fine.
There's a whole thing with the laundry, too. There's she takes her clothes, she goes to wash her clothes, and
she just dumps it.
And then
they see it in the window.
They hang it in the window. Because the laundry manager thinks maybe the owner will come by again and see their dress and pick it up, and then
it's somebody Sam kind of recognizes or possibly Dick Tracy that spots it in the window.
Yeah, or even one of the patrolmen.
One of the beat cops.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot. There's heaps going on, and it's quite well. I suppose it's quite well plotted, considering it was being written.
Yeah, there was a lot of cheats, but I think it's well plotted in the sense that I love the craziness of it. Now, I think there was, as I mentioned, a little bit less detective work as we go on, and eventually we're going to go to the moon. Yeah. So I don't know how much detecting is going to go on up there. But
his son ends up marrying Moon Maid.
Yes, Junior. Yes.
Yeah. But she eventually gets blown up by the guy that takes the strip on after Chester Gould, the guy you mentioned.
Max Allen Collins, right.
Yeah, he blows her up.
Okay.
and then, because of her being blown up, all contact between Earth and the Moon is severed out of diplomatic outrage, and that's how he got rid of the moon.
Wow, amazing. But I love the crazy twists and turns.
You're quite right. There are lots of twists and turns, and it frequently does cheat, you're right, because did she have that perfume all the time?
Yeah, and what about that muffler?
She's literally been on the lam for like a week, going from place to place, one step ahead of the cops, and she just, she began in a jail cell.
Yeah.
And yet she had the perfume.
And she had no money, so she couldn't buy another bottle of the same perfume, I guess. I guess she
did keep getting given money by that guy that wanted to sleep with her.
Yes.
Well, maybe. It's fine, it's fine for a 10-year-old. And also me, apparently.
Yeah, and I think the strip's still going now. It's very
much
weird.
Like Prince Valiant. Yes, it's still running
by other people, not Max Allen Collins by a long shot. Because I think it's being drawn by Joe Staton now, who I know mostly as a Green Lantern artist, unless I'm confusing him from the 70s and 80s. But
no, but it's only had a few artists since its inception.
Yes, and I did want to mention I really do love Chester Gould's art on this. I think it's we talked about the weird, it's mostly about the designs, but there is a kind of, he does really try to push a three-dimensionality about it. Like, I'm thinking about the courtroom scenes when we see Sleet's mother in court, we get a full court, and also when they're about to dump Sam Ketchum into that truck that's removing the snow, we get a long shot from way far away, and the people in it, when you see Sleet and her mom talking, they're just like dots, practically tiny little dots. And he's really, to do these tiny little newspaper panels and try to push that stuff, I think was interesting. You don't see it in a lot of other strips to try to get that kind of depth in such a tiny amount of space.
Right. And they're very colourful too. But just
the Sundays, yes.
Just primary colours though.
Yes.
So it's not like Prince Valiant. So it's nothing like Prince Valiant. No. That gorgeous art that we were talking about with Prince Valiant.
No.
It's very much red, yellows, and blues, and some, greens.
Them are secondaries.
Greens and pinks and.
We should point out that these two would have been dailies that were coloured, except for the Sundays that are. It's hard for us to tell what we've read in these sliced up comics. But I will say that, as with all comics, especially from before the 1980s, newsprint absorbs color.
Right.
It lessens the brightness of it.
So that would have been a bit more muted.
Oh yeah, it would have been more muted.
When you're reading it in your newsprint, at your morning with your Sunday morning coffee or what have you, it would have been
not have been blinding, which is something we're going to talk about pretty shortly.
Okay.
So I did want to point out, what else did I have in here? Okay, so we had, there were 4 serials. There was serials in 1937, 38, 39, and 41.
Okay.
And then there were 4 feature movies. 45, 46, and 2 in 47.
Wow.
The last one is apparently the most famous one because Frankenstein was in it. What's his name? Boris Karloff. Karloff was in it. I want to point out that all these movies were in black and white.
Of course.
And I also want to point out that Karloff wore no prosthetics, as far as I know.
Right. Aside from his false teeth.
I'm pointing all this stuff out for when we get to 1990 Dick Tracy.
All right.
I don't know if I have anything...
nothing for 50 years, and then we have...
Yeah, so, no, for 40 years. 47 was when that Boris Karloff one came out.
Okay, yeah, 40 years.
And, yes. So then it seems like there were a lot of... I think, like, Spielberg was looking at it, and a bunch of other people.
It did have a... Yes. So, that's right. So it got optioned, in the mid, I think, 1980s. And, as you said, it went to, I think, Paramount.
Okay.
Or possibly Universal, like a co-production between them.
Okay.
And Spielberg was maybe into it, but eventually they settled on John Landis.
Right.
So John Landis was behind it at a point, and he approached Warren Beatty to star. So I think maybe it was common knowledge that Warren Beatty loved Dick Tracy and wanted to be involved. It seems to have been
a super passion project for him.
Absolutely.
He seems to have been completely...
It still is, as we'll discuss.
Yes, we will discuss that, but we also we'll also have to discuss it in terms of his performance.
Right.
But and also we have to mention that Warren Beatty's girlfriend at this time was Madonna.
When the film was... Yeah, during the film, right. When the film was made.
I think before.
Oh, okay. But cast your mind back a little bit to this John Landis Dick Tracy project that never was. John Landis walked away at some point, possibly because of the trauma in the Twilight Zone movie.
Okay.
And a guy called Walter Hill took over, who's a British director.
Yeah,
right.
Amazing director.
Oh, okay, brilliant.
The Warriors?
Oh, right.
Walter Hill, I think?
Really, that was... Okay. Apparently, this film got as far as set building.
Okay. Wow.
But, and this will be a theme, the film was tanked by Beatty, who was clashing with Hill over artistic control.
Okay.
So, Hill wanted to make the film violent and realistic, like Warriors, if he was indeed the director, while Beatty, you'll be unsurprised to hear, envisioned a more stylized homage to the 1930s comic strip that he grew up with.
Okay. Yes.
So because Beatty walked, the enthusiasm for the project kind of collapsed. Universal or Paramount or whoever it was didn't renew the rights, and they reverted to the company that owns them, which is a syndication kind of a newspaper company. Tribune, I think it's called. And at that point, in I think around 1985, Beatty bought them himself.
Right.
For $3 million.
Okay.
Then Disney optioned them off him in 1988, and that's when production.
The Touchstone.
Yes, as
the Disney House. Yes.
Disney Touchstone. Okay. They didn't want to run it under the main Disney label because it was it has some grown-up content in it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of murdering in it.
Yeah.
And of course, Beatty is attached as the star, director, and as producer.
Yes. So Walter Hill had directed. He did direct The Warriors. Also, 48 Hours, Red Heat.
Right, Red Heat.
And...
But not Dick Tracy.
No.
Thanks to Warren Beatty.
I think there might be some other comic book ones on here. I'm just...
Well, then I dare say his name will come up again.
It will come up again. Yes. Okay. I was really, before we started recording, I really didn't know where I was going to start on this movie. So I have to come right out and say for me, it was a chore to watch.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, so the main thing was, the thing I know about it, and that everybody knows about it, when it came out, it was really famous for, even before it came out, when we saw the trailers and things, the production design. Mm-hmm. Because everything is done in primary and secondary colors.
Yes. So Yes. Yeah, this is what it's famous for.
Yes.
In the sense that as it took those primary and secondary colours that I mentioned before of the strip,
yeah.
and put them in the film as part of its art design. So everything is, I believe, only 7 colours. I think I wrote them down.
Okay.
Yeah, red, yellow, orange, blue, green, purple, and fuchsia, and black and white.
Yes.
So those are the colours in the film.
Yeah.
And every time you see that colour, it's always exactly the same shade.
It's okay. So this is okay. So I a couple of years ago, I'm Facebook friends with Jose Villarrubia, who is he's a comics colorist. In my opinion, the best in the industry.
Okay.
And he's always advocating correct colors in comics and things. But he commented on this, and his statement was, "There's no sense of how color affects storytelling in this." And it's completely true. Sure, everything is primary color. Sure, they tried to make it look like a comic book, but it's only the idea of a comic book. Because in the comics, on newspaper, it did not look like this.
Right, because it would have
been muted.
Into the,
it would have been absorbed by the paper. But the other thing is, because, as you just mentioned, it's all the same level of saturation. It's the same red everywhere, the same blue everywhere. And it doesn't matter if it's in the background or foreground, or if it's something that's important or inconsequential to the story. It's always the same.
Always exactly the same
It's
shade.
always exact.
They must have absolutely slaved to get this right.
Yes, but what?
With
to
lights,
what end? Why? How does it add to the storytelling, and what do we get from? Because I woke up this. The other thing was I watched the movie. And from the first 5 minutes, you start seeing these prosthetics that they tried to make human people look like Dick Tracy cartoon characters. And it is crazy. They really look like Star Trek Voyager characters at every turn. And I'm like, what is going on? This is bizarre. It is just so weird to look at.
That's a stinging critique.
Meanwhile, Dick Tracy himself, Warren Beatty, has a totally normal face.
Yeah, it's Warren Beatty at 53 years of age, but he looks like a normal dude.
He does. And the other thing was, credits come up. Stephen Sondheim, songs by Stephen Sondheim, come huge credit, very early in the credits.
Yep.
I was like, okay, fine. Songs come on. I'm like, look, this is not my genre.
It's kind of big band stuff.
Big band, but they just sounded really lame. They just sounded weak to me. And to me, all the songs sounded the same, and but again, it's not my genre. So if a genre is not your genre, everything sounds the same. The genre is just like a language that you don't speak. You hear somebody speaking that language, it all sounds the same. But okay, so I was like, okay, I hate the makeup, I hate the art direction, I hate the music. Al Pacino. This is 2 years before Son of a Woman, so I was like, is this after Son of? Because after Son of a Woman, when he won the Academy Award, every role was a shouty role.
Yes.
And I was shocked to see that this was 2 years before and he was doing a shouty role. I was like, wow, this is not the... Okay.
I did read...
I opened up the internet this morning. I was like, I'm going to do a bit more research. Very shocked to learn it won Academy Awards for Best Art Direction, Best Makeup, Best Song, and a nomination for Pacino for Best Supporting Actor. I'm like, what? These were all things that I hated in this movie.
This movie won 3 Academy Awards in those 3 areas that you hated.
And almost won in one that I also hated, which is Pacino, who inexplicably says,
go on.
I love you, to Tess Trueheart at the end of the movie. I'm like, where did this come from?
Because he's goofy.
So apparently 30 minutes of this movie was cut out by Disney.
Okay.
I believe it. But I think, another thing about the songs is the editing in this movie is terrible, because you never get a full scene. You get 10, 20 seconds of a scene, then it cuts to somebody else in another place. You get 20 seconds out, then it cuts back, and it cuts back and forth. You never get a full scene. And they do that with the songs. These are Stephen Sondheim songs that I would imagine they paid a lot of money for. You don't get to hear a whole song. You get to hear a minute of it, and then 30 seconds,
sometimes.
Then they cut to somewhere else.
Yeah, you're right. You don't really get to hear a whole one, do you?
But I will say about the songs, now, I've just gone on about how I didn't like the songs, so this morning I found out about this Bernadette Peters cover of the song. What's that song called? It doesn't matter, but it's one of the songs.
I think it might be the one that won the best song.
Right. And it's like it melted my face off, and I was like, okay. So the problem is not the songs. The problem is Madonna, as in the role of Breathless Mahoney, who is who I think was cast because she was Warren Beatty's girlfriend beforehand, is my guess.
I think that my thinking is that they didn't get together until they started filming. But I can shed some light on it. She works for scale. She really wanted to be in this movie, and she earned only $3,500. Oh no, $35,000. $35,000 for her work on the film.
I'm gonna say I shouldn't be mean because she listens to the podcast, but
in case.
But she's a listener. She writes in about every episode. I think she got paid what her performance was worth.
That's tough, man. I'm no great fan of Madonna, and certainly not as an actor. I thought she did fine.
Well, maybe the problem is also Warren Beatty, who I don't understand. This is a passion project for him. You look at the movie he did before and after, which are like Reds and Bulworth, which are also directed and starring him.
Yes.
And his performance, Bulworth is great. He's great in it.
I haven't seen Bulworth, but you're right.
I'm like, so why is he's so lifeless in this?
Right. All right. Okay. So here's the thing.
Okay.
It's like you said. This is his passion project. So what we're getting is Warren Beatty's own self-insert into the role of Dick Tracy.
Yeah.
So I found a review of it from 1990, published in the New York Times, which has a great, about the way that it attempted to adapt comics, and this article has a great headline. You don't see headlines like this anymore. The headline is, "The movie's creators used the strip to tease." It's like stuff like that anymore, unfortunately. So in a line from this, it's by, it appeared on June the 10th by Kathleen Beckett-Young. Not only are the film's characters and storyline drawn from Chester Gould's original cartoons, but its look is too. The reason is simple. I wanted to be 7 years old again, says Warren Beatty, the film's producer, director, and leading man. So, I think, and here is the secret for perhaps why the film looks the way it does. Because Warren Beatty wanted to be wandering around in the world of Dick Tracy's comic.
The other thing we haven't talked about besides the color is the lack of depth. So in the movie, they've tried to make it two-dimensional. They've actually, the thing is, so that like the backgrounds, you never see a cityscape, you see a painting of a cityscape, and it's not like they're trying to hide it, they're trying to show you that it's a painting, this is a fake cityscape, which is 20 meters behind the actors or something like that. They're trying to say, look at this, it's a cartoon.
Yeah.
And I think part of the problem, there's another major problem here going on, and related to set design. Do you want to go first?
No, you keep going.
Okay. Movie opens, and the music goes dun 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 dun, and it's Danny Elfman.
Yes.
This is 1 year after Batman.
Batman, yeah.
1 year. And that was his first movie score. I think he did the Simpsons score before that. Maybe that was 88 or something.
Okay.
But Batman he really begged to get allowed to do Batman. He did Batman. Suddenly he's on Dick Tracy. It's the same goddamn score. And the problem is, I think part of the problem with setting this movie in the 30s or 50s or whatever, is that Tim Burton basically designed Gotham as a 1940 city. So those cars, the cameras with the giant flash bulbs, all the Art Deco stuff, he did it a year earlier.
Yes.
And they're basically, let's do the same thing with the same music. It's the same, almost the same score.
The Batman 1989 casts a very, very long shadow over this film.
Oh, yeah.
In so many ways.
Yeah.
As you say, in terms of the score, in terms of the aesthetic, with its kind of grimy Chicago-esque, but also with its bright primary colours, and in terms of why we didn't end up with more Dick Tracy films after this, is because Disney very much wanted this to be the next Batman.
Of course, everybody was trying to make another Batman after Batman,
and
because we'll get it with the Shadow and the Phantom as well. All these movies were trying to capitalize on that.
This is the first, and it's so clearly in debt to Batman in so many ways. But to speak a bit more about Disney's hype, like the marketing behind this, I think we're pretty much too young to remember it. But
I remember
owned-
knowing about it. I remember knowing about, this is a movie with these colors, and they've only used these colors. I feel like I heard that all over the place.
But apparently, I was reading some articles from the time about the marketing that was going on. People were making the Dick Tracy suit to sell in shops, like menswear shops.
So it sounds like they were hoping for Batmania, where people were shaving the bat symbol into their heads.
That's exactly what they wanted. And the article deliberately mentioned Batmania. They wanted Batmania, they wanted lightning to strike twice.
Yeah.
Like, there was a whole range of toys. There was, like pajamas, towels, hats, suits. I didn't see the film as a kid, but I owned a Dick Tracy puzzle book that was based on the film.
Right.
And for the and pretty much until this week, this was my source of knowledge for the film.
Right.
I could, I took it with me on a long kind of car trip to Queensland, which is a big trip.
Yeah.
I can just remember reading it over and over, looking at the pictures, filling in all the puzzles. You had to do kind of like a letter substitution cipher, and the answer was, the enemy of my enemy is my enemy.
Right.
Which is an odd line from the movie.
Yep.
And so, they just show you the kind of the marketing reach of this film that I somehow ended up and with a
also. Oh, sorry. Keep on.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But now this film, usually when people think of it, as I understand it, it has a reputation for being a flop.
Okay. Yeah.
But you pulled a face, for a fact that it wasn't a flop. It made, I think, 160...
Wow, okay, I didn't know that.
It made $162.7 million.
Against a budget of 60, I think, or something like that.
Well, how much was the budget? That's the question. Yes. So, for the film to be, like, the production budget was about $45 million.
Okay, right.
But...
You have to double that for marketing.
Yeah. Well,
that's what it is for typical movies. Double the production budget or something.
Well,
like
okay,
that.
perhaps.
Well, not typical, because nowadays typical movies $300 million production.
Yeah, well, it's different. If we're thinking about something like a Marvel movie, but these are blockbusters. Yeah, this is still. This may be 1990. Is it still a time when blockbusters are still kind of gearing up?
I will say another thing about the hype around this movie was the cast. So we've got Warren Beatty, who is still a legend.
Star. Yeah.
Madonna, but then we got all these people that show up for. We mentioned Pacino. All these people who show up for a half second.
Yep.
Paul Sorvino's in it.
Yes.
Dustin Hoffman is in it.
Yeah, brilliant.
He's good. James Caan. James Caan is in it for one scene. For some reason, this is the first reunion we've had since The Godfather of Pacino and James Caan. He's got like 5 lines and he's one scene. Also, in this same scene, Catherine O'Hara is in this scene as a female gangster, has no lines. What is this movie? So I understand that 30 minutes... My understanding is 30 minutes was cut out of it.
Okay.
I hope to God... I have to imagine some of that was Catherine... Why would you put Catherine O'Hara in your...
I didn't know.
Why wasn't she Breathless Mahoney?
Yeah.
Is my question. Or why wasn't Glenne Headly, who was pretty hot off of Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, which was only a couple years before this, I think.
Okay.
I don't know if she's... But she was... I mean, I also wished she was playing the Breathless Mahoney role, too. She was really great in this.
I mean, I personally don't have a big problem with Madonna's performance.
Okay.
I think the issue is that Breathless Mahoney is just... is like a two-dimensional character.
Like, okay, we're going to
get to the characters now. So this has an all-star cast.
Also, Mandy Patinkin is in it.
Yeah.
And every time I see him, I do not recognize him. Every time he shows up in a movie or something, I look at. I heard he was in. I looked at. I was like, "What? He's a piano player? It is."
He sings a duet.
He is completely mercurial. He sings a duet. He sings better than she does, I believe.
Yeah, but it's. Yeah. Okay. So a slide. Okay, a point that you made about. Here's another point about casting.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about the cast, before she was before Tess Trueheart. What's the name of the actor that played
Glenne Headly.
Glenne Headly, that's it. Before Glenne Headly, apparently Sean Young.
Whoa.
Sean Young was cast.
Should I ring my bell for Dune?
Yeah, you should.
Okay.
Yeah, you should. There we go. Sean Young, friend of the show.
Wow.
Was cast as Tess Trueheart. Lasted a week. Now, the official story is she wasn't maternal enough to play the role, But Sean Young says...
Okay.
Sean Young says...
Okay.
It's because she refused to sleep with Warren Beatty.
Do you remember when she went crazy campaigning to play Catwoman?
Yes, of course. It's not the only crazy thing she's done.
Well, no, but also, as soon as you say Sean Young, I'm thinking of Blade Runner, where she played the femme fatale, exactly the role that Madonna's in here, and she could have done that as well. Except she can't sing, maybe.
Maybe.
Glenne
We don't
Headly
know.
can't sing.
She might have been great as Tess Trueheart. We'll never know, because she was sacked a week in.
Okay.
And she's really, like, nuts.
Okay.
These days, she's a bit nuts.
Yeah, she's in that Dune knockoff movie called Dune World, that $10 movie as well.
The Asylum Pictures one.
Yes.
So, legend has it if you mention her name on the internet, she'll find you and comment on your blog.
Okay.
But she says that it was because she kept rebuffing Warren Beatty's advances because he was trying to pursue an affair with her, and that's why. So, who knows what the truth is? I'm in two minds about it. This is before she kind of went off the rails with the Catwoman stunt.
Yeah.
Warren Beatty does have a reputation for being a playboy. He does end up dating Madonna during the production. Who knows what the truth is? We didn't get Sean Young.
Great. This episode's really dirty, like dirty gossip episode.
All right. Oh God, I feel ashamed. All right, but here's something. Okay. All right. Do I want to talk about the things that you hate, or do we want to go on and talk about more trivia?
Well, let's talk about the plot a bit, and then maybe some trivia will.
Great. Let's talk about the plot
because it's very hard to follow. I found it hard to follow. Yeah. Again, part of the problem is the editing for me, because there's so much cutting back and forth in the middle of conversations between people. You cut back and forth to scenes that don't have any. It's just that they're happening simultaneously. So for some reason, we have to see them at the same time.
Right.
I didn't write down the actual name of the production designer or the editor or all these people that I hated.
I wrote down the name of the cinematographer, which we'll get to.
That's Vittorio Storaro.
Vittorio Storaro. He was. He personally won 3 Academy Awards.
Right.
And he did The Bird with the Crystal Plumage.
Oh, right. Okay.
So which ties us back to last week.
Yes.
Because that's a famous Giallo film.
Well, there's nothing wrong with the filming of it, in my mind. I mean, there's a scene where there's a garbage can that's red. Why is the garbage cans aren't red?
Because it might have been red in the comic.
No, it wasn't. Chester Gould would not have colored a garbage can red. He would have made a grey garbage can.
Maybe. But Storaro was proud of the work he did on this.
Okay.
I have a quote from him. This is about the colour design.
Okay.
These are not the kinds of colours the audience is used to seeing. These are much more dramatic in strength, in saturation. Comic strip art is usually done with very simple and primitive ideas and emotions, Storaro theorised. One of the elements is that the story is usually told in vignette, so what we tried to do is never move the camera at all. Never. We tried to make everything work in the frame.
We had another episode, didn't we, where somebody was talking about the emotion of the panel, or... I'll never remember what it is now.
But as they're offering a kind of different perspective, so to your perspective, that the colours are nonsensical and detract from the emotional weight of the film.
Yeah.
Storaro felt that they were saying something, doing something, different to other movies.
Why is the street purple? Tell me what the emotional resonance of the purple... The street! The concrete is purple! Why is the concrete purple?
I love that you said that. Why is the street purple? Because I wonder if now's the time to bring... No. We're absolutely going to come back to why is the street purple.
Okay.
Before we go on to the plot, I kind of like the art direction in this film. So I have a different perspective to you. I like what they've tried to do with the visuals.
I get it. Look, I get it, and I get why everyone is excited about it. But in my mind, as a comic book nerd, to say that this mimics comics, to me, is like, no, it does not.
Well, we're not... Okay, so obviously adaptation's going to be naif for you. So it's not a good adaptation. But is it a bad film because it's not a good... Or are these bad visuals because they're a bad adaptation?
I'm going to say...
You obviously say yes.
I feel that they are bad visuals because to me there's no purpose to being blinded by the colors in every shot.
I, on the other hand, think I like the visuals.
Okay.
I like how different it is from pretty much any other film I can think. I love the crazy colours. I like that the street is purple. I like that the sky is turquoise. I really like the otherworldly feel, like we're in another world.
Okay,
where people's
I'm glad you brought this up, because I feel like one of the great things about Chester Gould's cartooning is you are in a complete universe. With Tracy's crooked nose and all those weird-looking people, everybody looks really weird, but you're taken into that world. It's a complete world.
Right.
And you're in it, and you're reading it 3 panels a day, 4 panels a day, every day.
Well, I felt that's kind of... All right.
You're in there. I feel part of the problem with the movie is to have real human beings, and especially the ones without makeup, any makeup, to be walking around in this weird color universe, which is only 2.5 dimensions. Like I was trying to get, the point I was trying to make earlier was they pushed it even, they made it even less realistic than Gotham was in Tim Burton's Batman. They try to make it 2.5 dimensions, and I'm like, to have normal looking people walk around here, it looks like, it's like Cool World or something, like one of those
I haven't seen Cool World,
animation crossover ones. That,
are we going to watch Cool World?
No, it's not.
It's not based on a comic? Too bad.
It's about a cartoonist.
It's cheap.
There is a cheat list of movies about cartoonists, so it's on that list.
We'll get back to that. But, alright, but you're right. I mean, you know, like, God, the work they must have had to do, because they would have had to use different shades of paint, depending on how far away the object that they were painting was, to make sure it looked the same as
and they would have had to paint the garbage cans for, like, why?
This is one. Okay, so I get that you didn't like it, but I liked it. I love the way it's no Batman. Okay, I like the music, but it's no Batman.
Which music? The score or the songs?
The score. Since you pointed it out, the songs do kind of all sound the same. But I like the Danny Elfman score. Okay. I like some of the songs when you got to hear a whole one.
Yeah, yeah.
And I like this mad world where because it's only the bad characters that have the grotesque features. None of the good characters wear the odd makeup.
Dick Tracy has that crooked nose.
Yes, I
Sam
understand.
Ketchum has a weird face.
Okay, forget about the comics. I know this is going to sound ridiculous in a comic.
I'm saying it's mixed up. I'm saying the movie does not know what it's trying to do. Like
I think how I felt is that this is a world where the grotesquerie of your soul finds expression in your face.
Yes.
This is a world where phrenology is real.
Yes.
Right? And and the fact that they're unaware of it doesn't matter. It's for us, the observer.
Yes.
We see these people for who they... We see them as they really are, as monsters.
Yeah.
But even though in the world of the... Even though they have names that have to do with their grotesque features, they're not aware that they're as grotesque as they are. It's something we are aware of as the observer.
Yes.
I like that. So unlike you, I did like the makeup.
I think there's a major cheat in one of the characters, though. A really bad cheat. Because this character called the Blank shows up, who has no face.
Yeah.
He has no features, which I think he was a Dick Tracy character.
Yes, he was.
And I'm like, okay, fine. We're in this world, that's the Blank. At the end of the movie, they pull a mask off the Blank. Wait a second, this was a mask? That doesn't align with everything else we've seen in the movie.
Where people have... Well, that's because...
Can we pull off everyone's mask? Can we pull off Big Top's mask and Pruneface's mask?
If I had to create a theology on the fly, I would say it's because she's not really evil. Because deep down, she's a good person. Because she couldn't bring herself to kill Tracy.
Well, I don't think anybody thought about it.
No one thought about it. I'm the only one that's thought about it. I'm desperately...
But to have
I'm
a
clutching
character...
at straws here.
For me, I was like, this character has a blank face, that's fine. All the other characters have weird faces. But I thought that was that character's face. And at the end of the movie...
That's what they thought, too. They thought it was her face until Dick Tracy pulled it off and revealed Madonna underneath.
Okay.
That's the spoiler. Breathless Mahoney was the Blank.
Okay, so it opens with...
If you bought an action figure in Canada 30 years ago, you already knew.
So we start with Paul Sorvino, was this character called Lips, under a lot of makeup. I was like, okay, right away. I'm like, okay, we get the Danny Elfman score. I'm like, this is Batman, and then we see Stephen Sondheim's name, huge, bigger than any other title. Paul Sorvino is this guy called Lips. He's called to a meeting somewhere. He goes to the meeting.
No, they pretend to be cops.
Oh, right, okay.
They pretend to arrest him, but they're not cops. It's Flat Top in the car.
It's Flat Top.
And you've left out the massacre scene at the start where we see guys in makeup, rogues gallery in makeup.
Oh, was that first? Okay, yeah. So we see a rogue... Yes, all these guys in makeup show up. I'm like... So they look like... like Pizza the Hut from Spaceballs. I'm like, holy cow, this is weird.
Littleface, who we only see in close up,
and they get killed.
Really stupid.
And Paul Sorvino gets killed. We don't know who any of these people are.
No.
They're never introduced, not even with one line of dialogue. No. They're just like these weirdo faces appear and then they're killed. So
this is something that has in common with Diabolic, where we're assumed that we're familiar with the characters and the world to a certain extent.
But in Diabolic, they're on screen for longer.
Yeah, well, these guys not at all.
These guys are not,
I just mean the whole film. The whole film, we're supposed to know stuff.
I guess.
Like we're instantly supposed to know what the
he says because at that point when the kid is looking at he picks up this orphan. Dick Tracy picks him up, and then the kid looks at the watch, and he starts speaking into the watch, and he explains what it is. Yeah. We don't get explanations of who these guys are, why did they have these weird-ass faces. We're just like, that's what the Dick Tracy comics are like. Yeah. But they're just killed off, so we don't know any of their motivations or anything. But he's taken to Al Pacino, who plays Big Top, is that his name? Or Big Boy. Big Boy.
Big Boy, incidentally, was the original villain of the strip from the 1930s. Okay. And he's meant to be Al Capone.
Right.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So
he's called Alphonse Caprice.
Yes.
And his nickname is Big Boy, what everyone calls him.
Okay. So he's got this huge chin prosthetic.
He's got the bald chin.
Yes, and some other.
His body's all lumpy.
Oh, yeah, he's got like a hunchback.
And he's shorter than. Apparently, Al Pacino designed the costume himself.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Al Pacino considers this one of his better roles.
You know, I kind of was liking it until the "I love you" bit at the end, and then I thought
he just has this patter.
Well, there's stuff. Okay, so when he kills Sorvino by burying him in concrete, and then he takes his girlfriend.
He kills lips.
Yeah, that's right. He kills Paul Sorvino, the lips, and then he just takes his girlfriend, which is Breathless Mahoney, played by Madonna. Now
everything he owned, I own.
That's right. He wants to take over his businesses. That's why he killed him, and he takes. She's a singer at this place called the Ritz, I think.
Yeah.
And he's in there doing the choreography and telling her how to sing, and it's bizarre. But I actually laughed through his grossness in the scene because he's like, touch it. He's giving her all these directions about like to touch herself on the butt and
he's doing a sexy dance too.
Yes, and I actually did laugh at this, but I was like, why is he the one choreographing them? Yeah. She already does this routine. So he's taken over this Ritz, which is actually a front for gambling, which was run by Paul Sorvino, the Lips character. This is all very hard to follow, I should mention. So meanwhile, Dick Tracy this kid has stolen a watch. Yep. His name is just Kid at this stage.
Yep.
And so he chases him down the street, chases him like crazy to get. I'm like, what?
Chases him past a train, a steam train.
Yes, and then
jumps in front of the steam train.
The kid goes into this shack where he's living with this dude, and the guy starts beating up the kid, so Dick Tracy runs in and beats up the guy in this crazy fight scene where he punches him like crazy, and the shack's shaking back and forth. It's very cartoony. Yeah. But it's I started wondering, like, is this, of the limited amount of Dick Tracy that I've read, is Dick Tracy a guy that really goes for a lot of fisticuffs and stuff shaking him around like this? And I wasn't really.
I'm not sure. I think he's a pretty physical dude. As you say, he pulls people out of cars and roughs. I think
he does pull them out of cars, but I don't feel like. There's a scene later on where 10 guys are in front of Dick Tracy and he throws one punch and they all fall over. And I'm like, well, this is maybe during the Moon Maid days.
He punches a guy. He punches another guy and the guy does a backflip. Literally does a backflip.
Literally does a back. By the way, this was. There's 3 montages in this movie. Part of the editing problem, a lot of information is like, let's have a montage for like 5 minutes with this newspaper headlines, that thing. Oh my god, like it's done so often.
Headlines, yeah.
Okay, Dustin Hoffman is this guy called Mumbles.
He's great.
He's pretty. Actually, he's good, and they.
Mumbles is the squealer.
Yes.
Right. When Tracy needs to find I think this is quite funny. This film is trying to be funny a lot.
Yes.
And really isn't a lot of the time.
No.
But these scenes with Dustin Hoffman playing Mumbles are so funny. Tracy just makes a beeline for him, and just Mumbles sees him coming and just tries to leave the room, but he sort of stumbles and he moves in this kind of hesitant way. Anyway, they get him, and Dick Tracy's really giving him the third degree.
He's got him under the lights. He's torturing him, and
under the hot lights.
Yes,
he's giving him the third degree. Come on. Come on, Mumbles, tell me.
But then the other cops are like, this is coercion. So again, this is like, they're kind of throwing the book at him, which is something that doesn't happen in the comics.
Right.
In the comics, he would coerce him, and nobody would say, hey, come on, you're coercing this guy.
They were trying to have some tension with the crooked...
They were trying to make him one of those...
He's a loose cannon.
Yes.
He's like Maverick.
Exactly.
Right, so
which is, to me, not what Dick Tracy is.
Okay. Right, but so he gets results, but the people love him, right? And he gets results, because as soon as he's locked up,
yes,
the crime goes nuts. But you're right, he's given Mumbles, Dustin Hoffman as Mumbles, is just, he's just coming out with this stream of nonsense, like...
Yeah.
And then eventually he shouts Mumbles something loudly, and then Tracy's like, thanks, we've got all we need, and then he leaves.
Yes, so we get a montage with the kid where they're having fun times with him. Did we need this in the movie where they're showing what fun the kid is? And he keeps saying, when do we eat, over and over again. I guess it's supposed to be funny. So he, at some stage, he runs into Madonna to Breathless.
It's after he's arrested. So because of what Mumbles told him, they find the warehouse, the waterfront warehouse, where Lips was given... The bath, which is like cement shoes.
Yes.
They put you in a cast iron container and pour cement on you. It's quite gruesome, actually, and then drop you in the river. Anyway, they find walnuts on the ground because Big Boy likes walnuts, apparently.
Right. Yes, that's right.
That's one of the only things we know about Big Boy, that he likes walnuts.
That's right. And then they know that he's taken over the Ritz, so they go to him. He meets Breathless Mahoney there.
Dick Tracy arrests him ahead of finding... He's hoping to find prints on the walnuts. Okay. Right? And people are saying, Tracy, man, you should wait. You've already arrested Big Boy 5 times. He's like, no, I've got to do it. Big Boy's... He keeps saying, well, Big Boy's on the street. It's, then every minute Big Boy's on the street is a minute that's bad and wasted. So I've got to get Big Boy off the streets. So instead of this... And it's like when you say about the plot, like the plot... Like, it does make sense. A lot of the time what's going on doesn't make any sense.
Apparently... So you want to go ahead?
Well, I mean, he arrests Big Boy. There's no urgency. There's no reason why he has to go to the Ritz Club and arrest Big Boy at that moment. He does so, and then the lab gets back to them. There's no prints on the walnuts, which we already knew because he was wearing gloves in the scene where he dropped them on the ground.
So apparently, related to the editing, there's a lot of ADR in this movie.
Yes.
And the reason is that apparently Maxwell and Collins saw the movie and pointed out all these plot holes, so they had to go back and ADR a bunch of stuff to fix it.
I believe it. The plot in this is absolutely tissue thin.
So Madonna starts coming onto him immediately, and I don't know why.
Just because he's Dick Tracy and he's got
Is he supposed to be super handsome?
Was he? I don't think in the comics do women love him?
No. As far as I can tell.
Is he like James Bond?
No, but you know what? He's confused about the genre because he's at the same time Beatty's trying to do a Raymond Chandler hard-boiled noir novel.
Yes.
And so he's like,
so you have to have a femme fatale.
We've got a femme fatale, and we've got in his office we got the blinds behind him with the light piece.
Except he doesn't drink because he's clean cut.
Yes,
you're right. Tone is weird.
It is. It's trying to be but Dick Tracy, the comic book, I loved one of the things we talked in the comic that we didn't mention was I really loved the dialogue, which is this hard-boiled. There was a lot of phrases in there that I'd never heard before. I even wrote down some of them. I don't think I'll be able to find them now, but they were like give him the heat, Tracy, and stuff like that kind of stuff, which I really loved. But it's not like a film noir. It's not. I have a feeling that those 40s versions are probably closer to what Warren Beatty's trying to do here. Those black and white movies are probably closer. They were right out of that era. I think so. I don't know. She comes on him immediately for no. We never get any sense that she's.
He's irresistible.
You don't get a sense that she wants something out of him, like she's trying to use him for something. It doesn't even work as a femme fatale. We don't get the sense that she's going to betray him or anything. She just thinks he's super hot.
It is,
and at the end of the movie, he's near the end. He's trying to convince her to be a witness, to give evidence in court. She says, "I'll only do it if you say you love me." Only, and I'm like, why? This scene goes on for like a minute, and where she's like, "If you say those words, I will do it." And he says, I can't say it."
And
then she walks away.
What kind of motivation is that? Exactly. It's because he's irresistible. What we're seeing
part of the problem here, too, is that his relationship with Glenne Headly, the Tanuja character, I actually really liked. I actually thought it was sweet, and convincing. Like, especially her. Like, I really believed that they had this relationship. Kind of wanted to get married, but she was like, you won't take a desk job, so it's not going to happen.
And also, he can't ask her because he doesn't know how to show his...
Yes.
You're right. That's kind of... And in keeping with a version of the character that I could have got behind if it was more consistent.
Yes.
So he's good at fighting cops, but when it comes to expressing his feelings, he gets all tongue-tied. He doesn't know how to ask her that he wants her to move in with him. He just keeps having the same conversation over and over. It's like, you live alone. I've been thinking.
Yes,
you live alone.
The same conversation
And
twice.
she says,
Exactly
I like
the same
living alone. And it's just
conversation,
like, you're right. It's good. It's sweet. It's clever. And that's why it doesn't make any sense that he makes out with Madonna in his home.
No, why did he kiss her? I don't get it. Because, in fact, at the moment, I wrote down the note, relationship with Tess Trueheart, because I actually liked it.
Yep.
And the second I wrote those words down...
He kisses Madonna.
Like a second later, he kissed Madonna. Because he was like trying to... He kept turning her away. I was like, this is good. This is like... I like that he's not, like, conflicted about this. But then he kisses her for some reason.
And then Tess sees them kissing. And she just... She leaves.
She leaves him. She goes back to live with her mother. Oh, by the way, we never mentioned that in the Dustin Hoffman interrogation scene, the stenographer, the lady typing is Kathy Bates.
Oh, is it?
Why? What are we doing here?
A lot of people wanted to be in this movie. I don't know why.
I think Warren Beatty has a lot of friends. Yep. For sure, he said, you want to be in my movie? For sure, they would say yes. They've seen Reds. They're like, oh my God, this is going to be awesome. And they show up. Catherine O'Hara has no lines. Okay, whatever. Oh yeah, so meanwhile, that reminds me that the Al Pacino character sets up a meeting with all the gang heads, all the bosses. Catherine O'Hara is one of them. And James Caan is one. Yep. And he's like, look, we're all going to work together. We're going to take over the whole town.
Each of you will have a seat on the board.
Yes.
I'm the chairman of the board.
Yes. And of course, James Caan turns him down, so he's killed a minute later. Like
they blow his car up with him in it.
They blow up.
Maybe you'll have a change of heart.
Okay, so then we get a montage of Dick Tracy's crackdown. I think he does.
Well, first there's the fake. These plot points don't matter. There's a fake raid. And the purpose of the raid is to put a bug.
Yes,
so
this
is Dick Tracy. The man already has an Apple Watch.
Yeah.
You know, his two-way wrist radio to bug Big Boy's hideout in the Ritz. They drill a hole in the roof, and lo, it looks like a stage microphone down through it, rested on the light fixture, and then the cord goes into the roof. And the guy monitoring the device is in the roof.
Yes.
Like, he could just hear them if he put his ear to the hole.
Yeah.
So why would you bug a place and then have a man sitting in the roof above their head?
Yeah.
You know, he's got a bloody radio wristwatch. Why aren't they monitoring it? Why aren't they using the teleguard, like from the comic? Why aren't they 5 blocks away?
Yeah.
No, so the guy's in the roof, and he listens to what Big Boy is, because Big Boy does all his business in this room. It never occurs to him that he's being bugged or to do business anywhere else.
Yeah.
His phone's even in this room. And the guy doing the bugging, who's called Bug, he has big ears. There's one person, a goodie, which has a prosthetic. Right. There goes my theory. Poof.
Huh. He uses his ears for good, though.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. So he then calls Tracy, he calls Tracy on the wristwatch and whispers, you know, okay, you gotta go in.
Yeah.
You know, they're about to get protection money from old man Chalmers down at the, bakery. And then, as you say, we have a montage of all of Big Boy's plots being foiled and Big Boy's getting angrier and angrier and angrier. And then eventually, the man in the roof, Bug, tries to squash a cockroach, and he tips over his coffee. He's drinking coffee up there. He knocks over his coffee. The coffee runs down through the light fixture and drips literally onto Big Boy's shoulder.
Yeah.
He finds the bug. They give some fake information to the guy doing the bugging to meet at the very warehouse where the lead overcoat was given to the concrete overcoat was given to Lips, the bath. And then, God, what happens? The bug is being buried in concrete. They spring their surprise on Dick Tracy. Dick Tracy's about, I think, to be shot, and then the blank shows up and shoots.
We haven't
one of
mentioned
the
that the
guys.
blank is who the blank is or when. So at some stage, this other character called the blank this character with no man with no face, literally no face, shows up to take over Al Pacino's businesses.
Well, first of all, the blank seems to be playing both sides, right? Because the very first introduction is when he kidnaps 88 Keys, the pianist,
Yes.
and gives him a business deal for Big Boy. He tells 88 Keys, so it's kind of a cool scene. He's standing up on a gantry, lit from behind, and he's got a microphone, and he says with his creepy voice...
His voice is the same as Bouche, Princess Leia, as the bounty hunter in Return of the Jedi.
Except speaking English.
And it was
instead.
really bothering me for like an hour and a half. I was like, where do I know that voice from? And it's that...
Yato.
Yes.
Yep.
Anyway,
he's holding a thermal detonator. So Blank was not holding a thermal detonator. He was holding a microphone. He gives 88 Keys this ultimatum offer that he, the Blank, will get rid of Tracy for Big Boy if Big Boy gives him this slice of his business, 10%, I believe.
Okay.
So it's not made clear. I think we should start with our in-depth plot review. But it's not made clear. But what's happening is the Blank is trying to carve off Big Boy's business and take it for himself / herself.
Yes.
So that only becomes clear at the very end when, bizarrely, the Blank tells Tracy that once Tracy kills Big Boy, they will be able to rule the city together. As if Tracy would go for that. At one point in the film, he's offered $15,000 by Big Boy, and he turns it down.
Big Boy also offers it to go into partnership with them. Yes.
But he turns it down because he's pure as the driven snow, despite the fact that he doesn't follow procedure, because he's like Han Solo, right? He's got a heart of gold. To continue with the Star Wars analogies. But, so...
By the way, Dick Van Dyke is the DA.
Yeah. Nice bit of casting that's pretty much wasted, because he's only in 2 scenes.
Everybody's only in it for a second. There's an elaborate...
He's crooked.
Yes, he's crooked.
on Big Boy's payroll.
Yes. There's an elaborate thing where he's murdered and they frame Dick Tracy for it.
It's the Blank that does it.
Yes.
So the Blank... Blank is supposed to be some sort of mastermind playing both sides, but we see so little of him we don't get a sense of it. The Blank secretly pretends to be Tracy and summons Dick Van Dyke to a hotel room where he tells him he has blackmail and to bring money. So the DA thinks that Dick Tracy is blackmailing him, so he shows up at this hotel room. When he shows up, the Blank shoots him.
Yes.
And then
Dick
Tracy, on the other hand, has received a message from Tess,
who has left him at this stage.
But she's come back, but the Blank has intercepted her, held her at knife point and said, you have to do what I say.
Wait a second, what was the scene where they searched Dick Tracy's apartment for stuff? What was that for? There's a scene where somebody's searching his apartment, we don't know who it is. I thought they were trying to get a handwriting sample of Tess's to write the note.
It doesn't matter. Because there's so much stuff going on, I'm just going to stick to this meta plot with the Blank. So the Blank first sets up Tracy to go down for killing the DA.
Yeah.
By having him think he's meeting Tess in a greenery. She drugs him with something, chloroform or something, comes out of the flowers and through these pipes. He wakes up in the hotel room with the dead DA. The cops burst in, arrest him. He goes to jail. We have a big montage scene where suddenly the good times are rolling and Big Boy is running the city with his racket.
Montage number 3, yeah.
But at the same time, the Blank is also setting up Big Boy by hiding Tess. Right.
He's kidnapped Tess, yes.
He's kidnapped Tess, and he's hidden Tess in Big Boy's attic bank vault.
Yes.
It's an attic that has a safe door on it. She's inside there. The police call. It all comes down on New Year's Eve. Tracy's cop buddies bust him out of jail. They have a showdown with Mumbles, where Mumbles... once again, Tracy shakes down Mumbles, he rousts him out of bed. And there's quite a cool scene where he reveals that he taped his confession earlier.
Yeah. Mumbles
laughs because he knows no one's going to be able to understand the confession. And Tracy deliberately, I think he uses his finger
slow down
the reel, and Mumbles' voice slowed down is perfectly understandable. And he says, Big Boy did it. Big Boy did it.
Yeah.
And then Mumbles looks horrified and then speaks in his normal voice.
Yeah.
But none of that mattered because they were going to the Ritz to find Big Boy anyway. So Mumbles' confession doesn't matter. It doesn't go anywhere. He didn't need Mumbles' confession because the police have been called by the blank to say that Big Boy kidnapped Tress Trueheart and he's holding her.
Right.
Everyone converges on the Ritz.
So this is a major panic. So he also calls Big Boy and says, you should look in your attic. And he goes up there and he sees that Tess is there.
Yeah.
And it looks like he's been framed for kidnapping.
Yes.
Which is really bad. This causes major panic. He's like, this is the worst because it's federal crime.
Yeah, he just wants her out. He's just trying to... He just wants her out. Federal crime, yeah. because Big Boy owns the local kind of like prosecutor or whatever, or did.
Yeah.
It's the federal crime that's going to get him in trouble, just like Al Capone.
Yeah.
So he's horrified at the thought of being charged with a federal crime.
Yeah.
So he's trying to bundle Tess out of his attic as quick as he can, but the place has been surrounded by cops.
Yeah.
He sends all of his mooks out, all of the ugly rogues gallery out to die in a hail of bullets.
So Dick Tracy jumps through the glass roof. I want to mention this first because this shot is straight out of Batman. It's right out of that scene in the chemical plant where he
comes
leaps
down through the skylight.
And it's like...
Except dumb.
Yeah, Dick Tracy, I don't know. But, so I should mention there's the hail of bullets, this huge shootout. Really, I feel like Warren Beatty was trying to call back Bonnie and Clyde.
Right.
I felt like...
Maybe, yeah. He's standing in the middle of the road.
It was a little bit of a nod with the Tommy gun, yeah.
Okay. But meanwhile, Big Boy has taken Tess through a secret tunnel behind some wine bottles, which is going to come out down on the riverside.
Yeah.
And the whole time, he's just running up this dumb patter. You know, Big Boy, he's always talking, saying things, he's a motor mouth, and he's always mangling quotations. He'll say some nonsense.
Yes, and then he'll say Lincoln.
Lincoln, it was Lincoln. Or Plato.
Yeah.
And it's not, obviously.
Yeah.
This is just nonsense. It's like impossible to take Big Boy seriously, which is one of my problems with the movie. Because they want him to be a sinister grotesque like the Joker in Batman.
Yeah.
Right? And he's always doing unsavory things, like he's slapping people. He slaps Madonna in the face quite a bit.
A lot.
He's supposed to be frightening, I think, but he's absolutely not frightening because he looks so dumb, and he you know, like, he's littler than everyone else. His body's all lumpy. He's got the bald chin, and he's saying all this silly nonsense all the time.
Yeah.
And it's Al Pacino shouting. I did read a review that said this marked the beginning of Al Pacino's decline into shouty self-parody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, they're out on the river. They try to jump over a bridge. They can't jump over the bridge. They climb a clock tower, and here we have the showdown. Yes.
So we're in the tower, same as Batman '89, and we have a big showdown. Somehow Pacino gets thrown down the same way the Joker got thrown down.
You're right. It is like that. It's exactly the same.
But then, the blank is there.
Well, the blank is shot
and
by.
He's shot.
They have a fist fight. They're wailing on one another. Tess has been tied to a big cog.
Pacino says, "I love you" to Tess Trueheart.
I get that this really ticked you off, but to me, it's just the last thing he said in a long line of dumb stuff that he says constantly.
Yes, that's true.
He's just constantly saying nonsense, because I guess it's supposed to be funny. You know, let's jump over the bridge.
Oh, we can't jump over the bridge.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back this way.
Yeah.
I think it was Plato that said, you make your own reality.
Yeah. You know, it's just nonsense patter all the time that makes him seem very silly.
Yeah.
I don't think we're supposed to take it seriously that he loves her. It's just something he's uttered. Because he's so mercurial and Joker-like, except he's not anything like the Joker at all. They're having a fist fight. Neither of them got the better of one another. But then the blank appears. Tells Tracy to drop his gun. He does. He says, Tracy, pick up that pipe and hit Big Boy to death with it.
Yeah.
Once you've done that, we'll rule this city.
Yeah.
So, what?
Yeah.
When has Tracy ever indicated that he's interested in ruling a city?
With the blank.
And also with the blank. When has the blank ever indicated that she wants to rule the city?
Yeah.
Well, as I said, maybe this is in the cuts, because in retrospect, I guess that's kind of what she'd been doing. When she wanted a piece of his business. It's not shown properly, like a lot of things. And Tracy's like, no. And he just starts walking towards her. And she's like, not another step, Tracy.
Yeah.
But he just keeps walking towards her. Maybe he's figured out who she is. Maybe he's just suicidally brave. But the point is, the blank can't bring herself to shoot him because she is actually Breathless Mahoney and in love with him.
Yeah.
Maybe because she's good, ultimately. Doesn't matter. Because then Big Boy uses the blank's distraction to pick up his gun, shoots her, Tracy punches him, he falls down, Joker style, into the blackness, disappears from the movie, he's dead. Dick Tracy takes off the blank's mask, it's Madonna underneath, they kiss again.
Yes. Could it ever have worked, she says, or something like, could it have worked between us? I'm like, what? You're still on this? Shut up!
Yeah.
And then she dies, and then we get a bit of closure where Tracy tries to propose to Tess.
Tracy's adopted the kid who's taken the name Dick Tracy Jr.
And I was actually... so I'll forgive
in the comics, he has a real son.
Junior. He has an adopted son called Junior. Yeah. And when this movie was... The first half of the movie was like, why is this the kid? Why do they have Junior in this movie? And I was kind of annoyed, and then finally it was like one of those fanboy Easter eggs where he called himself Dick Tracy
to be
Jr.
fair to the film,
he
takes the name Dick Tracy Jr. when Dick Tracy's at his lowest point, when he's in jail.
Yes.
Everyone else believes, even Tracy's buddies are disappointed, and everyone else believes that Tracy's crooked. But the kid at that point visits him in his cell, shows him, look, I got the official certificate made, and he still believes in him. And I can see what the movie was going for.
Yes. No, and I mean, I'm saying that was the moment where I forgave the movie, where he actually was Junior, not just some character called Kid.
So the final scene's in the diner. We're in this diner a lot. He's once again trying to propose to Tess. It's exactly the same dialogue as the first scene. It's great. But right when he's about to get it out, the watch goes off to a wrist radio announcing a crime in progress. And the kid's like, we gotta go. Come on, we gotta go. Let's go. Let's go fight the crime. Yeah. Tracy got it. And Tess is like, yeah, just go. It's fine. Yeah. This is what it is. Yeah. And he tosses her the box with the ring in it as he goes out the door. She opens it, puts it on her finger. It's a nice ending. Yeah. And that's the end of the film.
Yeah, well, all of the Tess, Dick Tracy stuff was the nice stuff in it, I think. For me, was the best stuff. So I had one more piece of trivia, which I don't know if it's true or false, but that's fine, because this whole episode has been gossip trivia.
Yes.
So apparently, when I saw the credit for Stephen Sondheim, I guessed, so Madonna wanted to do this movie so she could sing Stephen Sondheim songs, as any singer would. That was my assumption. Apparently it's not the case. So Madonna came on, then Stephen Sondheim came on.
Okay.
And apparently, I don't know if this is true, she asked him to collaborate with him, and he said no thanks. And then, apparently, she asked him to change the music because it was too difficult. So he didn't change it.
Scurrilous.
Apparently, he made a tape, and she just had to practice the songs as they were written until she got them right.
This is just seedy rumour mongering going on here. I have no idea if that's true or not, but I hope it is.
And I did want to mention one last thing in a reversal.
She did end up. She released an album.
There are 3 CDs of this movie. There's the score, there's the soundtrack, and then there's the I'm Breathless.
I'm Breathless. And when she did a tour, the Blonde Ambition tour, she would dance with Dick Tracy dancers on
and also there was a song called Back in Business, which she wrote for the movie, but they didn't put in the movie, and that's on the Breathless album.
Okay, very good.
Because apparently it was, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, when Sondheim came on, her song went off, basically, I think is what happened. Anything else we need? Oh, I wanted to mention as I was about to say, there's a reversal of our show. There was an adaptation drawn by Kyle Baker, 3 issues of the movie, which is apparently quite good. But I haven't read it. I flipped through some images online, and it looks really great. But it looks like the characters make sense. He's drawn a world in a way in which all the characters look like they belong in that world.
There's also a novelization, which is also apparently quite...
I think is it by Max Allan Collins?
I think so, and it's quite well regarded.
Right.
And there were 2 sequels written to that novelization.
Right. I believe it.
I have a couple of points of trivia.
Okay.
Again, so this film was shot entirely on sound stages and backlots.
Yeah, of course it was.
No locations.
Of course.
Because everything had to be painted.
Yeah.
Fuchsia, red, orange, yellow, blue. Apparently, 53 interior and 25 exterior sets were constructed for this movie.
Okay.
And something like 60 matte paintings on glass.
Right.
Yeah. And also one of the very last blockbusters to have absolutely no computer effects. Understandable.
That's interesting.
And interestingly, ironically, the very first to use digital audio.
Okay. Okay.
The reviews that came out at the time, the consensus was mostly that the film's story was terrible and it sacrificed story in favour of its visuals, which were generally enjoyed.
I think if the editing had been better, it could have saved some of the story. It really could have. I think part of the problem is that not only is there very little story, but they've chopped it up in a way that doesn't make any sense. There's one moment where she's singing a song and she sings the line mathematician, and at that very moment it cuts to Dick Tracy doing some math in a notepad to figure out how much Sam weighs or something like that.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, that makes sense. None of the other cuts made sense. Anyway, go on.
It's it. I mean, I think and also the reviews all point out the debt it owes to Batman. And I think that's another problem with this film. It can't get out from under the shadow of Batman. In fact, it's trying hard to be Batman.
Yeah.
But Warren Beatty's bizarre distillation of what he thinks Dick Tracy is while he's wandering around his own Dick Tracy theme park that's been built on Universal at Universal Studios for his personal pleasure. And all of his friends have come along to play Dick Tracy characters.
It's one of those things where I think we talked about it on the show, or at least we've talked about it elsewhere, where nostalgia is sometimes what you think the thing was, not what it actually was from when you were a kid. Like, you remember that show about outer space being like really being in outer space, but you watch it now and it's like crap effects or whatever.
I guess we are, because...
And I think his view of what Dick Tracy was as a kid... I think maybe he's transplanted what his idea of it was, but it's not what the reality of what that strip was.
Yeah, or our reality, or I dare say other people's reality. We are literally seeing his internal his idea of what Dick Tracy was.
Yeah,
which is Dick Tracy wandered around a brightly coloured wonderland. Yeah,
and could punch out guys with one punch.
Guys. And you definitely weren't too old to play.
And went against the book, like he was a maverick.
He was a rogue cop, and he was kind of noirish too. And a maverick, and you could play him at 53, and no one would mind.
Yes,
he is a bit old, but not too old. I think he's all right actually, especially having seen him playing Dick Tracy in the years.
Oh yeah, we haven't talked about that.
I'm absolutely going to get.
We got to talk about this.
I don't have much else to add in terms of trivia. As you pointed out, it won 3 Oscars, 1 for art direction, 1 for original song, and 1 for makeup, all of which you hated. It's tied with Black Panther. It took until Black Panther for another comic book movie to win as many Oscars.
Wow.
They are tied for the number of Oscars that they've won.
Okay.
It was nominated for 7
Oscars.
Yeah. Now, and 10 copies of the outfit were made. The Dick Tracy outfit, the yellow trench coat and fedora, because it always has to be pristine. It can't ever get dirty.
I know from Superman 78, they made like 30 Superman suits so that they wouldn't wrinkle like his left arm off.
I think you might even have mentioned that before on this podcast. Yeah. All right, but finally onto the last part of my notes, which is labelled Legal Issues, or Why Does Warren Beatty Keep Dressing Up as Dick Tracy?
Enabled by Leonard Maltin for some reason.
Yes, Leonard Maltin.
Every 20 years, Leonard Maltin's there to facilitate this.
So first of all, we never got a Dick Tracy 2. Disney very much wanted this to be a series, to be a success. As I said, they put a lot of eggs in this basket, and even though it made plenty of money, it didn't make Batman money. So they shelved it. And the rights seem to have stayed with Disney. Mm-hmm. And Beatty's never given up on the idea of making another movie. There's the 90s roll on, and also it takes him forever to make movies. The 90s roll on, he's not expressing interest in making a movie. And what seems to have happened is that in 2002, or roundabouts, the Tribune Media Syndicate, or whatever the name of the company is with whom the rights originally belonged, tried to take the rights back.
Okay.
In about 2002. And Beatty just immediately took them to court. Just like, not having it. You can't have them back, and seems to have fought them in court for about a decade, right up until 2011 or so.
Okay.
And as part of this struggle with them, in 2010, the Turner Classic Movies cable channel broadcast the Dick Tracy special.
Yeah.
Which is literally Beatty dressed as Tracy talking to film critic Leonard Maltin for 30 minutes.
Yeah. Being interviewed in character by Leonard Maltin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is done pretty much as a ploy, as part of his court case.
Yeah.
You know, and it worked, right? So I have a quote. It was in 2011, a judge found in favour of Beatty and dismissed the suit from TMS. So and I did have to hunt around for this because no one really knows the details of this agreement.
Okay.
But I did find an article from about 2014. Under the original 1985 agreement between Beatty and Tribune, the rights would revert to Tribune if, quote, a certain period of time, unquote, lapsed without Beatty having produced another Dick Tracy movie, TV series, or, wait for it, TV special.
Right. Gotcha.
So, what seems to have happened is Tribune sent Beatty a letter on November the 17th, 2006, giving him 2 years to begin production on any Dick Tracy programming. And Beatty said that he began a Dick Tracy TV special on November 8th, 2008.
Right.
And gave Tribune written notice. And it was the judge actually cited the Dick Tracy special in his brief, you know, in the when he found in favour of Beatty, he said, you know, he made that special, and it seems to show that he wants to retain the rights. He's going to make use of the rights. Okay, so far so good. Now, fast forward to 2023.
And Zoom.
It's
Microsoft Zoom.
It's February 2023, and the Turner Classics Movie Channel release another Dick Tracy special.
Yeah.
The Dick Tracy special, I think it's called Tracy Zooms In.
Yes. Yeah.
And I actually watched it.
Okay. I couldn't handle it for more than a couple minutes.
It's bonkers.
Yeah.
I think it's meant to be funny, and it is funny.
Okay.
I don't know if it's funny. I don't know if I'm laughing with Beatty or at him, but Beatty is an 85-year-old man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Leonard Maltin is there, and some other guy.
Yeah.
They're sitting on a couch, zooming with Warren Beatty, who's Dick Tracy, in character.
Yeah.
And it's mostly Dick Tracy complaining about the 1990 film.
Right.
He's just complaining about it, talking up those films from the 40s and the actors that played him. They're saying, do you think, like, Leonard Maltin's like, so do you think Warren Beatty was a good guy to play you? And he goes, well, I think those guys in the 1940s were good guys to play me. Beatty, he's alright. I guess he looks like me. And then he starts... It's so crazy. Beatty as Tracy brings up an interview with Warren Beatty, where Warren Beatty just talks for 5 minutes, and then it cuts back to the Zoom session again, and Beatty's there saying, Beatty as Tracy is saying, wasn't that an interesting interview with Warren Beatty? If I didn't know that he gave interviews like that, and if he gave interviews if he talked to me like that, maybe we'd be on speaking terms still, but we're not on speaking terms anymore. I'm just, what am I watching? And then he says, and in that last interview we did, Leonard Maltin, I kind of wish that I'd been able to show clips of the things that I'm talking about, because I think you need to show clips of what you're talking about. And Warren Beatty in that interview, he didn't show clips of what he was talking about. So now I'm going to show these clips. And he starts showing clips from the 1990 movie. And he's just going, no, this is no good. Look at that. What's he doing there? Why is that street pink? Why is that street pink? He goes, you can't celebrate crime like this. Look, you're supposed to show that crime doesn't pay, but look at this scene here. It's one of the montages where money's flying everywhere. No, this is no good. It's like it's a man in his mid-80s rambling over film clips from a film made 30 years earlier by the same guy, and then Kumar gets even more nuts. Then Warren Beatty calls into the Zoom session. And they start talking to one another. And meanwhile, throughout this whole thing, Leonard Maltin and the other bloke have barely said a word.
Right.
It's just
Right.
Beatty rambling. Occasionally they'll exchange glances. The camera will cut to them on the couch and they'll be exchanging glances. And then it'll cut back to him rambling. Then there's both there and they're rambling at one another. And then the final shot is them sitting in a cafe. They've met up to talk about Dick Tracy too. And which apparently Dick Tracy is going to make.
Okay, so my question in all this is, why does Warren Beatty want to retain the rights to Dick Tracy? Does he think he's going to make a movie? Does he think he's going to play an 85-year-old Dick Tracy? Is it going to be like the Shaft movies where it's like their kid and their grandkid?
No. He doesn't want anyone else to make one. Basically. He's not making a movie, a Dick Tracy movie at 85. He's not going to supervise the production. He's not going to license it out to a third party.
George Miller could do it. Why can't Warren Beatty do it?
He's just not going to do it.
He could direct it with somebody else starring.
He's not going to do it. But he can't bear the thought of someone else doing it. It's been such a part of his life for so long.
Lots of other people did it in the 40s. We had 4 serials and 4 movies.
Yeah, he's literally going to hold on to these rights until he's dead.
And I actually can see a good Dick Tracy movie. I think it's possible. I think it's probably animated.
TMS wanted to make a TV show in the mid. That was part of the reason why
there was a TV show as well.
But it's relevant to this hilarious. So anyway, to this hilarious situation.
Yeah.
They wanted the company was in trouble in the early to mid noughties. They wanted to make a Smallville style Dick Tracy movie. Dick Tracy TV show. No, couldn't get up because Beatty wouldn't release the rights. He just won't do it. The man is famous for his colossal ego. In a final point of trivia, I'm aware of the time, but in a final point of trivia, in the late 90s, there was talk of a TV Dick Tracy TV series being made.
Okay.
With Bruce Campbell as Dick Tracy.
Whoa. Okay.
Now I know that you have a copy of If Chins Could Kill.
Yes.
In the second volume of his memoirs, which I think is called Hail to the Chin.
Okay.
He talks about this.
Whoa.
About how he was almost Dick Tracy in the late 90s, but again, Beatty put the kibosh on it.
Whoa.
So thanks to Warren Beatty, that
was peak, like, TV Bruce Campbell as well, because he was doing Jack of All Trades, and what was that science fiction western one as well? He had a few.
Yeah, I know the one.
On TV.
God, what's it called?
Briscoe County Jr.
Briscoe County Jr., that's it. Yeah, so instead we got 2 Dick Tracy specials.
Wow.
Instead, on the Turner Classic Movies channel, which exclusively shows ancient movies from like the 40s and 50s and maybe 60s.
Yeah.
That's what we got instead of a Bruce Campbell Dick Tracy TV show. So.
How bizarre.
All right, let's do our questions.
Okay. So for me, the comic is a huge yay, and I'm looking forward to reading more of it. And it's I think I've said everything I liked about it. I like the world, that complete world that he created, and I like all the weirdo character designs, and I like the crazy plotting that just goes from one thing to the next, and it's almost hard to follow if you read it all at once.
Sure. I'm going to say nay.
Okay.
And I'm being a stick in the mud. But as far as old comics go, it doesn't have the art of Prince Valiant.
Yeah.
Even though you like it doesn't have the art of Prince Valiant, and it doesn't have the timeless joy of Lil Abner.
Yes.
And the hilarity of Lil Abner. Instead, it doesn't have those things. Instead, it just seems pretty much of its time. I'm not really excited about reading more.
Okay.
Right, that's fine.
Probably might only do. I imagine someday we might do that Boris Karloff movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course. And you never know. Perhaps I'll find a comic that I really like. But the film.
Okay.
Would you like to go first?
The film's a nay for me. It's for all the reasons I've gone into
Absolutely.
for the past hour. It's just I read everything about it. I think it doesn't know visually what it's trying to be in the having humans in this fake world. It doesn't look right. The colors don't look right. If it was a 5-minute music video, I think it would be pretty great. But as an hour and 45-minute movie with a plot that doesn't make much sense and is edited to make even less sense, and just the Batmaniness of it, it all added up to a bad experience for me.
Right.
Although I was looking forward to it. I was really looking forward.
I also was looking forward to it, because these are the 3 films we've picked for our Crimex 3-week extravaganza. I'm going to say yay for the exact same reasons you just said.
Okay.
Because it's a crazy Fantasia, even though it's got a tissue-thin plot and it's ripping off Batman, and it would be way better if it was 5 minutes long. I'm still saying yay because of the stuff that I like about it. This is
a reversal from our usual.
It absolutely is. All right, adaptation, yay or nay?
Oh, hard nay. So it's kind of it does everything wrong that Danger Diabolic did right. In terms of understanding what comics are and trying to make a movie that looks like the world of the comics. It's just and it doesn't even understand who Dick Tracy is as a character. It doesn't understand what comic books are supposed to look like. Everything all adds up to. It doesn't know what genre it's supposed to be. Yeah, it doesn't match the comics. I think in any. I mean, it's got the characters, like, especially the weird face villains in it. But it's just, but we don't get in a Dick Tracy comic. You would only get 1 or 2 villains, and I remember when the Batman movie started going for 2 villains, we were like, whoa. And then when we got the Batman and Robin, there was one that had like Poison Ivy and Bane and. That must have been Batman and Robin. I think it was Mr. Freeze. It was like 3. I was like, what is going on here? This movie has like 30 Dick Tracy villains in it.
Sure.
And they're just like dispensed with, and Catherine O'Hara has no lines.
Yeah, no, okay.
Come on.
I'm on the fence. All right, I'm going to go with nay.
Okay.
So that we're not complete opposites. Okay. I'm also going to go with nay. Or am I? No, it's okay. I like what it's tried to do. I do like the aesthetic.
Yes, but even the aesthetic is not what's in the comics. Sure. Like the muted colors of the newsprint are not what
we're seeing Warren Beatty's memories of the comics he read when he was 7.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's a very effective adaptation of Warren Beatty's 7-year-old.
Yes. Of what's in his head.
Of what's in his head.
Yes, absolutely.
But of the comics, maybe not. And there was a line, there's a line that the cinematographer Storaro said when he said, the story is usually told in vignette. And I think this film would have been, because the story is a big problem with this movie. And I think that if it had done something different, maybe short stories, maybe a few vignettes instead, but it's too soon after Batman. But
you mean if it had done like 3 storylines in one movie?
Yes, for example.
Yeah, for sure, that might have been very different.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Kumar?
Yes, okay, so next week we're absolutely going to do Sin City. I don't think anything needs to be said. I think the movie covers 3 Sin City storylines. I think it's
A Dame
the first one, and A Dame to Kill For,
and the Yellow Bastard.
I think are the 3. So if Madonna, if you're listening, those are the 3 books you want to read for next week.
Fantastic.
I think that's maybe all the preamble.
That's all we need. We'll see you next week.
Okay.